Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to the Knit Girls. This is episode one.
193,
Okay. Laura's
I
prepared.
think.
Awesome.
I have the
Um,
show notes in front of me. I might
it's
have skipped an
February the
episode.
9th of 2014. Um, I'm Leslie, also known as You Don't Call Me Les.
I'm Laura, also known as Lala.
And yeah, this is a knitting podcast.
Score. What are you knitting on?
Mine is
Totally
going to
made
take
you go
forever to
first.
explain, so why don't you go first?
Oh, I have 3 things on the needles right now. I actually have more than that. I have another pair of Afterthought heel socks out of the Florate colorway of String Theory Yarns Continuum, and they did not get worked on at all this week, so they are sitting beside my bed at my house. But things that I have worked on or ripped back to a point in which they could be worked on include some Vesper socks in the gemstone colorway. This was a club colorway. It is a 4-striper. Her, is it 4? 1, 2, 3. It's a 5. Wait, I can count.
It's 4.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's a 4-striper. The 2 blues together throw me off, and that's why I can't count.
It's been a long day already.
I got up at 6 a.m. and I could not go back to sleep. My body was like, there is snow coming. Hide your children. Hide your wives. There's snow. It is Vesper Yarns. I have always enjoyed her yarn, and this is going to be an Afterthought heel. There's the little blue in a different color to denote where my heel will go. I will rip that out and pick up those stitches, and I'm actually going to do one heel, like the standard Afterthought heel that I always do, and then on the next sock I'm going to do the where it's like a hat, the top of a hat.
The crystal?
Yes, the crystal heel. And so these are going to be socks that I take to a class that classes that I'm teaching in the future, and then eventually wear. To show the difference between the 2 different styles of Afterthought heels.
Cool.
Look at me being prepared for classes I'm teaching in March. It's like I'm a real person.
Like a real designer.
Not even designer, a real teacher of some kind. So this is, like I said earlier, Vesper Yarns in the gemstone colorway. She has a lot of pre-orders that have been going up, and she's been having sales lately. So I would definitely check her out if you're into the like 5, 6 stripers. She's been doing this more often.
She's the first indie that I remember doing self-striping.
Mm-hmm. And
like,
I remember
aside
her
from
because
the big companies like Regia, she's the first indie that I remember that did self-striping.
And she used to work at the yarn shop in Swickley, which is in Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay.
And was my local, like, before Blooming Yarns even was like a twinkle in anyone's eye. That was the yarn shop that I drove to when I was like 16 and taking glass bead classes next door and
cool,
being all kinds of cool and fancy and artsy.
Before and Vesper is actually Knitterly Things, right? That's the company name?
Okay. Yep, Knitterly Things. And she lives in Ohio now and has 2 adorable kids, but we're digressing. Anyway, these are on size 1 needles, 2.25 millimeter. I don't even know what I've said. And the first one is almost done. Maybe another 2 repeats. And I will bind off. This is how the yarn looks in a cake.
So. It looks like a birthday cake.
Yep, and Julia helped cake this.
Aww.
And it is in my, in my zigzag stitches bag with little bicycles. And now I have Queen's Bicycle Race song stuck in my head. Other things that I started this week, I started a new shawl. This is, let me flip the stitch marker to the back, the start of my Olympic Games knitting. It is Glitz on the Ritz. Let me get out the pattern. I am using Made in America Yarns Wayfarer in, I think it's Cranberry Bog.
Yeah,
something
I think so,
cranberry. Glitz at the Ritz. I keep on saying on the Ritz. It's at the Ritz. It's a knitty pattern. It's a free one by Helen Stewart. It calls for, I have around 600 yards of this. And it calls for less than that, like 475 maybe. So I might make it a bit bigger. I might extend. There's that netting section at the bottom. I might extend that a little bit. I'm gonna look and see what other people have done. And it's got a cute beaded picot bind off. And it does have beads. And I'm placing those beads. As you can see, there's the beads. And because they're vertical, you can tell that they've been placed on the stitch. And I'm using Oral-B Super Floss to do that. My Oral-B Super Floss that I just bought, though, does not seem as fluffy as Oral-B Super Floss that I've bought in the past.
Maybe
so I don't know if they changed it or I don't know. But I'm just a few rows in. This was to be my Olympic knitting, but to be honest with you, I haven't watched the Olympics because I've been living at my new house, which does not have TV or internet yet. That's happening on Tuesday. So I'm very excited. I actually went and bought a little antenna for my TV.
The rabbit ears?
So maybe I can watch the Olympics tonight. But it's like you have to stand on one leg holding it near a window, so we'll see if it works. But that
I think that South Haven is all digital, so I don't think it's going to. But, you know, you can try. Just saying. Pretty sure they went all digital a few years ago.
It works here.
Maybe. I've been wrong many times.
Well, it's one of the digital antennas. It's not like the old. It's whatever, you know, it's fancy and new antenna. I don't know.
It'll totally work.
No, Hank had an antenna at her yarn shop, and it totally worked. It's going to work.
Okay, totally going to work.
I have faith. The stitch markers I'm using, whoa! I'm smacking things, are bright and shiny and cheerful. They came with my bag, which I love. It's a Christmas bag. Don't judge me. I'm still using it, and I love it so much.
There's no rule against that.
And that is from Bling Your String.
Awesome.
He's in Canada. So, and these are the beads that I'm using. They are Dynamites. My local yarn shop used to sell them. So I have 2 packs of these to use up. And here's my Oral-B Super Floss. In case you've never seen Oral-B Super Floss, we do have a tutorial that uses it. See, it seems so much skinnier.
Yeah, it doesn't seem quite as fluffy.
Because my beads are just
if they
going.
Can move on them, then it's not nearly as
it's
fluffy.
not as fluffy as it used to be. But what it is it's got this stiff end here, and then a foam fluffy bit in the middle, and then a long thing of just regular floss, which I knot so the beads can't go off.
And it's intended for like dental appliances or braces to help get in hard to reach spots, but it's really useful for adding beads.
For sure, because you can fold this part over and make your own little mini crochet hook. So that works out for me. You can also, it's a little bit more portable for me than a regular mini crochet hook because I can load it up, as you can see, with multiple beads. And then just leave it in my bag.
And you don't have to carry around a little container of beads that if you breathe on it wrong, they go whoosh everywhere.
Yeah. Although I went to Whole Foods today and got like a cool Altoids type tin for my beads because it had dragons on it. It's one of the Newman's things and I liked it, so I bought it. The last thing on the needles is in my very cool knit wench bag. I can't believe I remembered that it was knit wench bags. I'm awesome today. Just ask me about it. And this had a bit of unknitting done to it. So this is my 50 row shawlette, and I was on row 46 when y'all saw it last, and it was kind of in the middle of a row, but it was much bigger than this. And today I went to finish it up, and I realized that I had missed a whole section of it. Switched from stockinette to garter towards the end, and I missed the whole section, like 7 rows or something that I had done in stockinette that was supposed to be garter. And I'd also, way back here, before the yarn overs, had done like an increased yarn over rather than the lace work that it called for, which did not have but 2 increases. Instead, I doubled the stitches. So I decided to rip all the way back.
So you were just making your own pattern.
Yeah, totally not reading the pattern at all. And the pattern, which is by Susan B. Anderson, is super clear and super easy to follow. This is the 50 row shawlette by Susan B. Anderson. The yarn is Spunky Eclectic Cordale. That's hand spun that I spun in the Rosebud colorway. It's really, really nice to work with, and it's on size 10 needles, which is 6 millimeters. So it's really nice to work with. So I have no problems with taking this, and I hand wound it back into a ball. and reknitting it. Because there was no way, like, normally if I had had a ton of leftover, I would have just done the garter at the end, like 10 rows past where it should have been, and just called it a day. But I was almost out of yarn because it was towards the end. So I'm going to reknit it, and I'm totally fine with that.
You get more joy out of the hand spun.
Oh yeah, like it's lovely to work with, even though it's Cordell, which is a little bit more coarse than, let's say, Merino or Polworth. It's really pretty, and it's not going to be for me. It's going to go to someone else, probably my grandmother. So
she's in town, right?
She's in town. She and my mom are talking downstairs. They were actually talking right behind that door, and I told them to go downstairs so that y'all couldn't hear their entire conversation about. I don't know. There was like a 20-minute long conversation earlier about how parking spots at Whole Foods are too small and they should be big like Costco. So that's what I have on the needles. I actually did tell them that they were old at that point.
So loving.
I am. I love my grandma a lot. So.
Okay. I have a hand spun thing on the needles, so my segment's gonna be kind of jumpy, and we'll go back to Laura because she's got. You don't have an FO, do you?
Nope.
No. Okay.
No FOs.
But you do have some spinning, so we'll go back to you in just a second for spinning.
Okay.
Well, not in just a second. It'll be a few minutes, so get comfortable. So I talked last week about the spinning that I was doing for a Less is More cardigan, and I finished the spinning and decided that that's not what I was going to do anyway. I'm using the Less is More for the color blending because it has a really genius color blending method in there, but not for the actual pattern itself. I was going to just convert it to a pullover, but then I found something I liked better. So this is what I'm going to do. This is by Heidi Kermayer, and it's the Shell Seeker.
Yeah, that's really, really super cute.
I love the Wallaby Pocket or Kangaroo Pocket or whatever you want to call it so much. I'm not doing the striping pattern because it's already hard enough to blend the hand spuns because you do like 4 of this, 3 of this, 1 of this, 4 of this to blend them. That doing that with striping would make me crazy. So I'm not doing that, but I am using the basic top-down raglan patterning with the pocket inset.
Plus, let's be honest, no one needs to see me in horizontal stripes.
It's not for you.
I know, but it could be. I'm just saying that, like, horizontal stripes are not the most flattering thing in the world.
Yeah. Although if
I
you
was
want to
saying
rock
it
it,
on me. I wasn't going to say no one should see you in horizontal stripes. That's just rude.
It would be rude, yeah, because, you know, I don't care if I'm fat. If I want to wear horizontal stripes, I'm going to wear horizontal stripes.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I'm not a horizontal stripes girl. We're always off topic.
So, I had 6 colorways that had sort of similar color qualities. They were all into the world, and they're all listed in the show notes. I'm not going to go through them all. There's no reason to. And what I did was I assigned each one of them a number. Color 1, color 2, color, etc. So, each one of them I split in half and spun 2 ounces on one bobbin and 2 ounces on another bobbin. And I had these cardboard storage bobbins. So I didn't.
And you showed those to us last week.
Right. So what I did was with color 1 and color 6, I took one of each of those bobbins and I 2-plied it on itself. So it would be just color 1 and just color 6. So it would be like a half skein. And then for the rest of them, I 2-plied color 1 with color 2 with color 3, 3 with 4, 4 with 5.
So you're ending up with 4 ounces of a finished yarn, but one has 2 ounces of one colorway and one has 2 ounces of another colorway.
And all the rest of the skeins would be 4 ounces, but they would be blended between colors.
So you did 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 1.
The 6 and the 1 were separate, and they were half skeins.
Okay.
Anyway, so in the project, I've already done the one color by itself, and I started with the color 1 and color 2 blended skein. So this is the rest of them.
Okay.
So I had one of the Tyvek, the priority envelopes that are flexible.
Yeah.
They're made out of Tyvek, which
Yeah.
is waterproof and takes Sharpie marker really well. So I just cut it up right on the flap with a sealant so that I could close it on itself.
Super smart.
And so this is colors 2 and 3, and then I wrote the yardage that I got for each one. So this is
you were around 350 yards on each, or 375 on each?
No, this is the one I got the most yardage on. Most of them were around 250, 280.
Okay.
So this is 2 and 3, and this is 3 and 4, and this one is my favorite. This one's 4 and 5.
I like that one.
It's going crazy, but it's real plump. And then this one is 5 and 6.
Okay.
So it kind of takes a drastic turn from the bluey purple to more of an autumny color, but I don't care.
No, I think it'll look nice.
But the purples blend, so I think it'll be fine once it gets knit up. So anyway, they've all been soaked and they are dry. And oh god, I just lost one. Fell over there.
You'll find it.
I will. So this is what I'm doing. I decided that I wanted to do a pullover like the Shell Seeker and the Miranda, which I wear all the time. But I wanted it to be a split neck, so that it would be sort of asymmetrical at the top.
So split going this direction?
So basically I knit a long rectangle. That's this part.
Okay.
It's inside out. And then I started with the raglan shaping. So when it's open, it's going to look sort of like a turtleneck, like you slit the side of a turtleneck and you laid it open.
Yeah, I have some sweaters like that. And they actually have a button band up the side.
Right. Right. And I can add buttons to the side if I want, but I don't think I'm going to, because I don't want anything that close to my neck. But this is nice and wide. It's kind of scrunched up on the needle, so you can't see it. But
what size needles are you working it on?
These are on size 9, which is
nice.
I think 4 millimeter. Nope, 5.5 millimeter. I was way off. And I did a double garter stitch edging, which I just picked out of one of the
that text message I got now makes total sense.
Barbara something.
Walker, number
Barbara Walker
2.
Treasury, yeah.
Because I got a text message asking, for the viewers who don't know, asking me if I had that one. I was like, it's somewhere in this house.
Yeah.
And I told you I didn't, and then I walked out to the bookshelf the next day, and it totally was there. I just overlooked it.
But anyway, if I was smart, if I were to do this again, I would just start the raglan. I would just cast on and start raglan and then pick up and do this little split neck thing afterward. Because I had the hardest time figuring out, did I need to turn it inside out if it was going to lay down? Like, my brain has a hard time with the abstract and figuring things out in reverse. But I did end up having to basically knit around, wrap a stitch, and switch and make the wrong side the right side. But it's fine. Nobody will ever see it.
No, because it'll be folded down.
Yeah, so this is the sleeve.
Okay, that's really pretty.
Yeah. So
and you're still on the first skein?
No, the first skein was mostly the flap, and then I started blending the colors right about here.
Okay.
So I'm into the second skein.
Okay.
And that's this here.
Okay, your Nostapin stuff.
Yes, I wound it on a Nostapin, and I love the way it looks. And next week I'll show you guys what a Nostapin is and how to use it. I had a couple people ask me about it. I didn't bring it down, or I would show you now. But I just have a hairband wrapped around it with the tag so that I know what color I'm on. I would say I probably have a little over half the skein left. So probably around the time that I start dividing for sleeves, I'll have to start blending the colors again.
Okay.
But I'm really happy with it so far. This is my Olympic knitting project, is just to do a hand-spun, hand-knit pullover of some sort.
Cool.
So it's going to be the basic pattern of the Shell Seeker. Although my gauge is a little bit different. And we'll talk about gauge more in a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's it. That's all that I'm really working on. I do want to cast on some sport weight socks out of this yarn that we got at a Lucy Needy class.
Oh, I gave that yarn to Mom. Because she was whining that she had no sock yarn.
Well, this is a heavier weight, a sport weight, so this is not going to be portable for long. So this I can take to work. Although I get to work at home several days this week, yes, because they're painting the office. And,
that's awesome.
So hopefully I'll get some extra knitting done.
I'm happy to work from home this week, too.
I'm sure you are. So anyway, that's pretty much all I've done this week is I spun and plied my butt off. That was 1.5 pounds of spinning and plying in about a week and a half. And then I started the knitting.
You did awesome with that.
On Friday, so. But Laura has some spinning too.
I actually spun a little bit this week on my Lendrum and worked on the Moonshine Fiber balls that I have. So this is the first bobbin, and I'm actually I had this sitting here where I record, and so I'm done with the second one. So I'm going to take it and ply it. What now?
I love that color. It's so beautiful.
I do too. The second one, because it was shoved in a box for the move, kind of got a little bit more compressed. But it's all done and it's looking good. So, it's going to be nice. I'm excited. Yeah. It's glitz and glittery, so that makes me happy. And there's no plans for the finished yarn as of yet. It's an alpaca blend, so I might do something that's like drapey, like a cowl like a big cowl, like an infinity cowl of some kind. Maybe I'll do a honey cowl for me.
I like that.
Depending on yardage. So we'll see. I gave my grandma her honey cowl and she loves it. So.
Oh, that's sweet. You need a picture of her in it.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen. It might. My mom and my grandmother. So my grandmother is my mom's mom. They do not particularly care to have their picture made. A whole lot.
That's sad, but some people don't, and that's fine.
Yeah,
that's their prerogative. So.
That's fine. So that's what I spun, that itty bitty second bobbin of that, and so I'll take that and apply it.
2 ounces is 2 ounces. I mean,
yeah, it was fun. I actually did most of it last night, and it was nice. I had watched Star Trek, so I had a little bit left of that because I finished my secret project.
You watched Star Trek?
Yeah, well, the movie.
Oh, the new one?
I told you that I was watching. Not Into Darkness, the one before that. Oh. I own the first one. I don't own Into Darkness. I'm waiting until
Into Darkness is good. I actually like it.
I like it. I've seen it twice. It was a good one. I am kind of in love with the guy who plays the BBC Sherlock, and he does Cod in the new Into Darkness. Okay, yeah. And also the dragon's voice in The Hobbit. So, anyway, Benedict Cummings, I think is his name, something like that. Yeah, dragons talk. Hello, fantasy.
Okay. If you say so.
They do. Stop raining on my imaginary creature parade. We do have a question, since we are all over the place today.
Yeah.
From, how do you want to say it? You say it, because I'm going to mess it up.
Okay, so this is from one of our viewers, and it was on the What Do You Want to Hear About thread. Or, no, that's the TheKnitGirlls, the Knit More Girls thing. This is, I'm sorry, I listen to them, so, it's like when I introduce myself as you, it's like, it's ingrained as, like, I don't know. Anyway.
I listened to them. They were the first podcast I listened to in my new car.
Ooh, fancy.
Fancy. The new player. Anyway.
So this one was in the Ask Us Anything thread, and it's from Alabit Gypsy, I believe, is how you say her name. And her question is gauge really as important as some knitters make it out to be? And the answer is sometimes.
I would say that if you are doing something that is fitted, gauge can be very, very important.
Anything that requires something to be a specific size, yes, it is important. Also, if you're knitting like a scarf or a cowl or a blanket, where you don't care if it's a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than what the pattern says it should be, yes. Or no, gauge is meh. if it's anything that's fitted, a sweater, socks even, a hat, a skirt, especially a skirt.
Sweaters.
Already said sweaters.
Oh. Gloves, mittens, anything that you want, slippers, anything that you want to be fitted, to have a fitted, tight construction or loose on purpose construction. Gauge is important. Gauge is also important when you're buying yarn, because if you're not getting gauge, whether it be you're too loose or too tight, that will drastically impact the amount of yarn you use.
Yes, so if you look at a sweater pattern and it says you need 800 yards of X type of yarn, but you're getting a different gauge than what the pattern says, you're going to use either more than it calls for, or less, just depending on if you're knitting tighter or looser.
And that's true in a non-fitted piece as well. If you're knitting a shawl that doesn't really have to be a certain size, but you're knitting too tight or too loose, and it calls for 800 yards, and you run out and need 1,200 yards, but you went up 4 needle sizes,
right?
Then that's going to affect the amount of yarn that you use to finish a pattern.
So, in the strictest sense, you really can't measure gauge by knitting a few inches and measuring it. It's not going to give you a true gauge. Like, if you want to be scientific about it and make sure that you get the right gauge, you need to knit at least a 4x4. Amy Herzog suggests more like a 6x6. You need to bind off. You need to soak and block it in the same way that you would soak and block your finished garment. So if you're going to wet block it, then wet block the swatch. If you're just going to spray block it, then spray block the swatch. And you don't measure anything. Yeah, and let it dry. If you want to, you can measure before and after it's been blocked, so you can get an idea of how much it grows. And that's a useful thing to know. If you feel like you're knitting along and it doesn't seem right, you can go back and look at your pre-blocking and post-blocking measurements to account for any shrinkage or growing. But you have to make a swatch, and you have to bind it off, and you have to block it.
And then it's also, before you buy a sweater's worth of yarn, like let's say Madeline Tosh Pashmina, it's good to carry that swatch around with you and see how it acts over time, because certain fibers and certain yarn constructions are not going to wear in the same manner as other fibers and yarn constructions. So that can also affect your gauge over time. If you have something that's felting on itself, it's going to become much smaller over time than something that does not felt. Gauge is also really important when you're doing a project with other people. Years and years ago, Leslie did a blanket square project for a friend, and everyone knit a certain size square, and we did that FOP swap too. And some people's idea of 12 inches is 12 inches. Some people's, especially if they're following a pretty strict pattern, can be more like 10 or 14. So gauge is really important when you're doing a project with other people. Keep that in mind. If they ask for 6x6, they probably need 6x6. But also, like if you're crocheting squares together, if the row gauge is different, it might skew it a little bit when you're sewing it together. You might have to do every other stitch on one and every stitch on another, or kind of give it a little bit more play. So, yes, gauge is important on certain projects.
It has varying degrees of importance depending on what you're knitting or crocheting. I'm not as well versed when it comes to swatching crochet, but I assume the same rules apply. You'll want to make a certain size swatch and, block it and then measure it against what the pattern says.
And we have a good friend, Carol, who does a lot of freeform stuff. So for her, gauge isn't really important at all. She just makes it to a size and just adds stuff on or takes stuff off or cuts or, does what she wants. And I think of her more as an artist than anything else.
She rarely follows a pattern. She just kind of... She
freeforms.
Yeah, she does what makes her happy, and then she adds on to it in different ways. And you know, that's what makes her happy. Rock on.
Yep. So for someone who freeforms, gauge would be less important.
All right. But they also inherently understand that they may run out of yarn mid-project.
And they're usually fine with that.
Yeah.
At least Carol is. As long as she can find some more black somewhere in her stash, she's fine. I love Carol.
So I hope that answered your question and didn't give you 10 new questions.
And we can go into more in depth. A good resource for gauge and swatching in general would be Little Red in the City.
Oh, you sold this book, yeah.
Ysolda Teague. So that's a great resource. Knitter's Book of Yarn is a great resource for different fiber compositions and how they behave and how fiber compositions can change your gauge. That's a great resource. I'm trying to think of what else. Those are my two main ones that I turn to time and time again. So
yeah, and almost any book that you get, patterned book, is going to emphasize gauge. And if you're like me, like some things I don't gauge swatch on, and that's because I've done it so many times. Once I start knitting it, I know if I'm off, and that's socks. Like, I've knit so many pairs of socks that I immediately, by the time that I get to 64 or 72, depending on the yarn, I can tell if it's too wide. Like, I can just tell. And as far as, like, row gauge on socks, it's not super important because I can just knit longer or what have you. But the same with hats. Like, I can tell if it's off just because I've knit enough of them. And it often is. But if it's anything that I really don't want to have to do again, if I don't want to really have to rip it out and do it again, then I'm going to swatch, usually. So we do have a book to review, that is by our friend Deb, and that's Dishcloth Diva Knits On.
This is her second book. We reviewed her Dishcloth Diva book before. These are published by Cooperative Press, and Cooperative Press did give us this copy to review.
Yep.
It retails for $15.95 paperback. So I love Deb's books. I'm totally biased towards them. I, now owning a house, am totally in love with, I've had some very generous friends who have given me some hand-knit dishcloths, and I had a few of my own. And I have been using a storm out of them. So I just love knitted dishcloths. And this book actually is a little bit different from Deb's first book. It has some wonderful patterns, just like the first one. And there is a visual index that shows you all the patterns. But this one, in the first one, she really goes into cotton and what makes it good for dishcloths. And this one, she goes into wool and a project that she's doing, Lapgan project, which is for, I believe, Ronald McDonald House.
It is. It's Ronald McDonald House, which, if you're not aware, and Laura and I had a friend who was real familiar with the Ronald McDonald House, for children with serious or terminal illnesses, lots of different types of cancers. Ronald McDonald House helps to provide housing and support to the families of those children, as well as provide fun things for the kids to do, because a lot of times when when your child spends a lot of time in the hospital, they don't get to do other fun things. So Ronald McDonald tries to make it fun. And so supporting them is a great thing to do.
So there are patterns in here, which you can use either for an Afghan or for dishcloths. The first is Lucille Bell, which is a great slip stitch pattern.
And all the patterns in here are named after what Deb considers old-fashioned names, which she really enjoyed. She talks about how she enjoyed envisioning what the name might visually represent, and I think that's a fun way to use, what might be considered an old-fashioned name. I really like the super simple LMA. It's just knit and purl, almost like a basket weave, but it's super simple. You could do that at the movies or at dinner, or, you could be done with it in a couple of hours. I think it's a great, simple project.
I like Nellie. I think that one's fun. It's got some great visual interest with the slip stitches. Dishcloths are also a great way if you've never done slip stitches before. A great way to get your feet wet doing some different things, like cables or slip stitches or lace. I
was thinking this would actually be a really great gift for a relatively beginning knitter, to get them to try out all these different patterns and have really quick instant gratification, which is important when you're beginning knitting. You don't want to give a beginner knitter like this huge complex sweater. It's going to take them forever to finish it, and they're going to feel like they're never getting anything done. And the instant gratification of washcloths, I think, is fantastic. And they can learn tons of techniques. I really like Blanche.
I do
which,
too.
of course, makes me think of the Golden Girls.
Of course.
And that's a super simple pattern with a really great texture to it.
And I like Opal, which is so pretty. It reminds me of my nieces. Like, it's super girly girl with the cables. It just looks very lovely and finished.
I like the really simple, delicate lace of pearl. It's something that'll give you a lot of bang for your knitting time. I like the detail of the cable-y lace that you get with the stitch pattern.
I like Virginia, which is another cabled pattern with the little yarn overs.
I like Olive too.
Yeah.
It's a real nice, sort of classic, could be very unisex, manly, or feminine, that you could give with, you know, a gift of some handmade soaps or something.
I really like the font that they chose. It's large, it's clear, both the purple and the black. I wish I could show you guys an example, but the patterns are typically one page, and I don't want to show an entire pattern. There's a little star that takes you to the table of contents on the bottom of each page. There's a little explanation of each pattern given in like in italics. It's really, the font is clear and easily read.
It's a very easy to understand pattern book even for a beginner. You've got this sort of twist on grandmother's favorite dishcloth.
Yep, I like
called
that.
Gladys, which that was my paternal grandmother's first name, was Gladys.
And I like the idea of holding two different color yarns together. And she uses bamboo pop, which I think House of Yarn carries now. I know that because someone showed it on Instagram. Vicky with no E.
Oh.
Showed. I like Helen. She makes me think of Wait Till Helen Comes.
That's one of my sister's names. I really like Ethel because for me this looks more woven than knitted.
Definitely.
And I think that is just a fantastic texture. And I can't wait to knit one of those.
I've never heard of the yarn it's out of. Sassy Skein Key West Caribbean Cotton with K's. That's interesting.
It's a mercerized cotton, which is great for washcloths.
Yeah. Elizabeth, which is one of my favorite names, reminds me of pinwheels. It kind of reminds me of some quilted pieces. It's really, really pretty.
And she's got some pattern or some information in the back about her lapgan project, and then some pictures. This is Deb here. You can see her and some friends putting together one of the lapgans. And really the only thing you need to do to convert these from dishcloths to lapgans or even a bigger afghan would just be to substitute a washable wool, and you know, you can modify the size if you want.
So the whole, there are 15 different patterns in this book, and it is Dishcloth Diva Knits On by the lovely Deb Buckingham.
And if you want a paperback copy, it's $15.99. If you would like just digital, you can order it on Ravelry for $9.99 digitally.
Which is a steal for 15 really patterns.
Yeah, and some great patterns, not just your typical ones. So I know there's at least a couple of these I will definitely be knitting, especially that one that looked woven. I can't get over that one. I really like it. I might have to knit one of those this week. Is just sort of a, you know, quick instant gratification. I just really love that one. I can't get over it. I might have to knit one real quick. Anyhow, so we wanted to thank Cooperative Press and to thank Deb, who is a member of our group, and she comments quite a lot. So
she's tons of fun. Yay! We have a giveaway to do, which is Lost City Knits.
Okay, yes, we do. For the kit.
Yeah, so it is a kit. Here is their card. And that is Chris and Denise. Were generous enough to give this to us. There is a skein of their lovely blue lace weight. The Oak Barn Merino lace, which is 1,000 yards in cocksure. and then a copy of her new pattern, which is Telemina shawl, which refers to a road of some kind. Highway, expressway, a road. It runs 54 miles.
Okay, so we had 248 posts in the thread. The first one was Laura, so I'm going to do between 2 and 248, and it says waiting. I have not generated the number yet, so I'll push generate number. It is number 76, which I think is on the 4th page.
Okay, let me get there, because I didn't even have Ravelry open. So it's 76?
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty. That's the first one on the 4th. Oh, it's Jordan Dunaway. She's one of our young members of our group. I see her sometimes on Instagram. She's from Texas, so she probably knows exactly what that highway, I think, runs from like Oklahoma to Arkansas. So it's kind of Texas. I don't know where Pampa, Texas is. And now I'm giving too much information about.
That's the second biggest state in the entire country, you know.
But she loves the Foothills Fingering Glacier. She thinks it's just gorgeous. So Jordan, if you'll contact me, Lala, I will go ahead and that's so cool. She's one of our youngest knitters, and she's only been knitting a year, so that's really, really exciting.
That's a fantastic.
So just contact me, and she's on Team Sasquatch as well.
Oh,
yay.
cool.
We are, Leslie and I, we've already kind of alluded, we're both doing the Knitting Olympics, and I'm doing my beaded shawl, glitz at the Ritz, on the Ritz, something
at the
Ritz. And Leslie is doing her sweater.
Yes.
Cannot wait to see all of yours. We are members of Team Sasquatch, and all the rules and everything else is over in that thread on Ravelry. I'll link to it in the show notes.
And I did just want to say there's a lot of podcast hosts that are captains.
Yeah.
But realistically, it's Coggy and the Lost Geek that are doing all the work.
Yes, seriously.
So hats off to those ladies. Thank you very much. You guys are doing a wonderful job, and we appreciate it lots and lots.
Yeah. I need to head over there while I still have internet here and catch up on some threads.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we are both doing that for Team Sasquatch. And I wanted to talk about iTunes distribution. So if you're seeing this podcast, you probably aren't getting it from iTunes. So as many of you guys probably already know, Blip, which it was the video host that we and a lot of other podcasters used, is basically discontinuing sending anything for anyone, not just knitting podcasters, but anyone, over to iTunes. And the reason they are doing that is because they can't monetize it, and that means iTunes doesn't allow advertisements to play before the podcast starts or for like commercial breaks unless it's part of the video file. Mm-hmm. So they don't make any money on it, and they are a business, so they have the right to discontinue that distribution. It's a pain in the butt for everybody else, but we are working on trying to get the iTunes distribution fixed. We had signed up with Podcast Garden, but they've had 2 outages in the past week, so probably won't be staying there. I'm working on getting the iTunes feed fixed. When I do, I'll have to backfill with all the old episodes, which is going to take some time. So if there's a specific episode that you want and it's not there yet, just go to the website. The website will always have the podcasts, and until I can get the iTunes backfilled with all the other episodes, because once Blip stops distribution, you can no longer use what was previously there, which you pulled from Blip. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of technical crap that you don't care about, I'm sure, and I don't care about it either until I have to. So, yes, there will be points when you can't get it through iTunes. I'm doing my very best to make it as minimal as possible, and there is a thread in the group called iTunes Distribution. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them there. I'll do my best to answer you. And I do know that Megan of Stockinette Zombies posted some information on how to do redirects if you use Blogger and WordPress to some degree as well. Trying to figure it out. So, anyway, Laura has some good news.
I do. Well, I have 2 good newses. I have a giveaway for this week, and then I also have a car. So I purchased a Toyota Corolla this morning, used. It's a 2006, but under 100,000 miles. So I have a car again. And it
no
only
car note,
cost
right?
me, do what?
No car note, right?
Yeah, kind of. It only cost me a little bit more than,
so
yeah.
A car note for this long.
Yeah, it just cost, well, I borrowed money from my parents. So, until I pay them back, which is, you know, happening as soon as possible. So, it just cost me a little bit more than what I got for my car. So it worked out pretty well. And so I went from a 2005 Focus to 2006 Corolla, and my insurance dropped, which was very exciting, by $5 whole a month. So that's like coffee money. That makes me happy.
That's one day of coffee money.
Yeah, I don't go to Starbucks much anymore.
Oh, okay.
Because, yeah, I just don't get up there very often. In fact, one of my coworkers, because I watched her class 3 times this week, brought me Starbucks on Friday, which was very, very, and she knew what I got, which is amazing.
I know she remembered. Something latte with 3 pumps of peppermint. No, venti something with 3 pumps of peppermint.
Venti white mocha.
There you go.
With 3 pumps of peppermint. Non-fat.
I just remembered 3 pumps of peppermint.
Yeah, because it's so bizarre. Yeah. We had a very, very kind viewer, and it is Cat Loves to Knit on Ravelry, who sent a skein of Wollmeise for us to do a giveaway with. And it's one of the weird different. It's a gorgeous, like, I'm trying to think what, it kind of reminds me of, I'm trying to remember which blue it reminds me of.
Looks like a navy-ish.
It's really, it's like a grayish blue.
Slightly lighter than navy, though.
Salba something is what the tag underneath it says. I don't want to peel off y'all's tags.
But she's doing it anyway.
So something. It's a twin, so it's 20% wool.
20% nylon.
20% nylon, 80% wool. Superwash wool, and it's got 510 yards to it. So it's got the Wollmeise smell, which I used up all of my wool wash I got in the Loopy U Club. So I've got to figure out a way to get more of that wool wash because it is delightful.
You can buy it on Amazon. It's just called Pearl Wool.
I'm totally gonna do that tonight because it was really good. Like stuff that usually bleeds in soak did not bleed in pure wool. So anyway,
and if anything was going to bleed, it would be Wollmeise because the color is so saturated. Although I've never had Wollmeise bleed, but I'm just saying there's so much more color in Wollmeise yarn than there is in a lot of others. She like really saturates it. So that speaks well for Pearl Wool that it doesn't cause the bleeding.
So we will be giving away this lovely skein this week. Any ideas on a prompt?
We'll think of something awesome and put it in the thread.
Leslie will think of something awesome, and then I'll start a thread because she hates getting replies.
I just don't like... It's so weird, right? Because I've got this disclaimer on the front, on my Ravelry page that says, it may take me a week to get back to your PMs. Sometimes it takes longer. Like, I get, I don't know, several hundred emails a day at work, and sometimes I just don't feel like answering Ravelry PMs. And I can live with that number, but if I see an unread reply, it bothers me. I don't know why. Like, that's my brand of crazy. It's one of the many flavors of my crazy.
But anyway, thank you, Cat Loves to Knit. That was super sweet to send this our way, and I know our viewers will totally appreciate it and give it a new home. Good new home. So, I think that's it for this week. Is there anything else that we needed to discuss?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
So this week is Valentine's Day in the States. I don't know if it's celebrated in other places because I'm culturally illiterate, but I hope that if you do, you have a wonderful day. And that's pretty much it. That's all I got.
Okay. So. Well, we will see y'all next week. Hopefully I'll have some snow days this week.
Oh, maybe you'll be recording at your new house next week, right?
As long as Comcast. Yep.
Here's hoping.
As long as it gets set up okay. It actually, at my new house, the cable for the internet is actually, it was like strung across in a very awesome manner, and now since an ice storm, it's on the ground. So, we'll see. I did the install yourself kit, so that means I'm going to be calling Leslie, who's going to hand the phone to Michael.
Yes.
as I go, yeah, I know you told me how to do this, and Comcast is
But
do
you
it
don't
this
have
way,
somebody
but
coming to your house, right?
no,
Okay, good.
Because to get someone to come to your house is a much bigger fee than just for them to ship the install it yourself kit to your house. So we'll see how that goes. I figured like I could take it in baby steps. Like we'll try this, and then if that doesn't work, I'll call them and have someone come to the house.
I'm sure that Michael can walk you through it over the phone.
Hopefully, as long as everything's connected and like that cord did not like shear off of someplace terrible, we're good.
Yeah.
I'm a responsible homeowner.
Okay,
Anyway.
well, y'all have a fantastic week, and we'll catch up with you in a week on next Sunday.
Bye, y'all.